because it is composed according to certain rules that hold it together. Let me put what you're looking at up on the screen. That's not it. That's not it. Okay. That's it. So we're going to do a little bit of analysis on this song. I'm going to take this, first measure, ba, 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 ba. I'm going to call it motive A. And a motive is not necessarily what you use to commit a murder, but it is the smallest piece of music that constitutes a musical idea that will stick in your head. And let's look at this. We go up a note, and then down a third. Right? Up a step, and then down a third. There's also a certain rhythm to it. Ba, 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 ba. Now, as you might imagine, this song was written in the days before recorded music, so we needed a way to remember things, and the easiest way to remember something is to repeat it. So then you have a repeated motive A in the second measure. Then you have another motive here with a different rhythm, but it's got a repeated note and a leap down a third. Now, how is that motive like motive A? Everything okay there?
Yeah, I just wrote down what you see here is the same as on the projector and put it in front of the camera for a second because I can't see.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they'll have this in front of them.
Okay, see that I didn't know.
Okay, there. So we have a repeated note and then down a third. How is that like motive A? Chris.
It's just like the dotted eighth and the 16th are combined into a quarter note.
Yeah, exactly. In other words, I think another way to say that is this middle note, the G, is removed. Right? So this middle G is removed, and this still happens on beat 1, this still happens on beat 3. So becomes, and transposed to, alright? So everything is very closely knit together. And then measure 4 is related to measure 3 because it's the same, what?
Rhythm.
What's the same?
Rhythm.
The rhythm's the same. Also, the contour is the same. We leap down, we just leap down by a different interval. So there's unity and there's variety. Because if you just repeated the same measure and over and over and over again, that wouldn't make a good song either. You with me so far? Okay. Now, we combine those two things in what I call motive B, starting in measure 5. So we have a repeated note, then we have our original rhythm, and actually we go up a third there, right, instead of down a third. So we've changed direction. And then just so we don't forget it, our motive A, again, embedded within motive B. Right? And we have the whole shebang, 5 and 6, repeated in 7 and 8. Makes sense? Looky here. In measure 9, repeated note, and then instead of down a third, up a third. Next measure, up a third, back down a third, same rhythm. Right? So the whole song is really held together by just a few motives. Now, here's the highest note in measure 9. It only happens once. Right? Because it's special. It brings you to a high point in the phrase and in the song. The lowest note, which happens last, also only happens once. So I'd say this is a pretty well-built song. Would you agree? Yeah. And it's lasted for hundreds of years, so it's a pretty well-built song. Now, what you're going to do when you compose your piece is you're going to base it on Silent Night. And you're going to base it on all the good things about Silent Night. By the way, another thing that I forgot to point out is there are very few actual intervals in this song. It's mostly seconds, thirds, and the occasional fourth. Right? Seconds, thirds, and the occasional fourth. That's about it. I don't really see, are there any fifths in this? Oh, there's a seventh from there to there. We're not going to count that. It's the inversion of a second. Same thing. So, letter B, preparing to compose your piece. We're going to write a composition that has the same structure, same rhythm, different pitches. And then this is very important, the following limitations will ensure that your composition is unified and consistent with itself. So you're going to choose a clef, treble or bass clef. If you really want to write an alto or tenor clef, fine. Anybody dying to write an alto or tenor clef? Good. Okay. Then I want you to choose 2 intervals. Only 2 intervals plus their inversions, so the interval upside down. You don't have to decide it now, but when you do, just write them down. The intervals that I chose, I believe, were the major third and the perfect fourth. So I have major third, perfect fourth, and that means, we didn't really spend any time on interval inversions, but major third turned upside down is a minor sixth. Just trust me on this. Perfect fourth turned upside down is a perfect fifth. So if I go C to E major third, if I put the C on top of the E, I get a minor sixth. Same thing if I go perfect fourth C to F, put the C on top of the F, I get a perfect fifth. So you're going to compose a piece using only 2 intervals in their inversions, so 4 intervals altogether. Stick with major and minor intervals, because those, basically all the augmented and diminished intervals have major and minor equivalents. They're going to sound the same. If you want to use the tritone, you can, but talk to me first. If you don't know what that is, don't use it. Don't use a key signature. If you're going to use only a limited number of intervals, what you're going to end up with is a piece that is non-tonal. Don't be scared of that. You're going to like it anyway. And that's one of those things where you're not constrained to a major scale or a minor scale. So you can do other things with rhythm and contour and pitches. Okay, we're going to use 6/8 and the exact same rhythm. So when you put it together, you're going to write your own mode of A, ba, 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 or with my pitches, I might end up with something like this, with major thirds and perfect fourths. That's my mode of A. Weird, isn't it? Kind of cool. You like it? Okay. William likes it. So, gotta be good. All right. Measure 2, you're going to repeat that motive. Or you can transform it, which we'll talk about a little later. In measure 3, the first 2 notes should be the exact same pitch, just as they are in the original song. Same for measure 4, measure 5. Measure 6 should say, measure 6 should have an exact repeat or a transformation of mode of A, just like it does here in the original song in measure 6. I'm just going to keep the song up there. In measures 5 and 6 together will form mode of B, which should be exactly repeated or transformed in measures 7 and 8. You see what I'm getting at? Structure is the same, pitches are different. The third note of measure 9 should be the highest note in your piece. It should only happen once. Last note should be the lowest, and it should only happen once. So you've got to manipulate your intervals and your directions of your intervals to make this happen. So you are free to choose your interval directions, whether they go up or down at any given moment. All right, my first motive could go all up if I wanted to. Doesn't make a very good motive, but it could. So here's how we do transformations if you turn over the page. So imagine this were your first 2 measures. You could do an exact repeat, or option 2 is an inversion, where I use all the same intervals, but I do them all in the opposite direction. So here's, just gonna get one.
Oh, I'm just gonna go first.
Now I'm going to turn all the intervals upside down. Major third down, perfect fourth up, perfect fifth down. Right? Still sounds the same, just kind of the other direction. Or you could just write all the pitches backwards. This is called retrograde. Or you could combine the two and write a retrograde inversion, which is backwards and upside down. Alright? You may use enharmonic equivalents anywhere you need to avoid things like double sharps and double flats. And I like number 3. Face the fact this piece is going to be atonal and it's going to sound weird, then run with it. Make it sound weird cool, or weird funky, not weird I have no clue what I'm doing. You can read the rest of that for yourself. Listen to it. Play it on the piano or on note flight. Actually, note flight is what we used last year. Use score is probably what you're comfortable with. If you want to learn to use note flight, it's a really cool program and I can help you with that. Okay? You need to mark all your intervals and all your transformations. And we'll start next class by talking a little bit about how this is going to work, and I'll show you a sample project. So I would take questions, but we're about out of time, so save them for Wednesday. Okay? It's not going to take you very long to do, and I think and hope that it's going to be fun for you. We're done.